Welcome. Here's David. We're going to spend some time with him today. As you can see, he's not doing too great. He's got on his running shoes. He's going to be wearing the same clothes for a while and won't be able to shave because he's on the road from Saul, and we're going to trace his journey on this map from Ralph Wilson. This map, like a lot of the other things in here today, will have the website with it to give credit to those who they originally came from. So David starts off his refugee status in Nob. And the interesting thing about Nob, if you look at where we think that it was located, this is what's there today. It is a super troubled neighborhood of Jerusalem called Shuafat. You can see that they've built a wall around it for safety purposes, and it's huge. It might not look like it on this map, but it's huge. So it's interesting to think about David starting his status as a refugee in this place that has almost become a permanent refugee camp. But they have been doing some excavations in Shuafat and found what they think is the ancient city of Nob. And there's where those pictures came from right there. So from Nob, where David talks to the priest. Of course, Doeg, the Edomite, is there witnessing everything, and we'll talk about what that ends up meaning later. This is where David gets some bread and the sword of Goliath, and then travels over to Gath. Gath is a Philistine city, and it's actually Goliath's hometown. So, David's, he's that kind of guy that does that kind of thing. Takes Goliath's sword and goes to Goliath's hometown. But eventually he worries some people, and so he kind of has to pretend to be crazy to get out of there. This is the archaeological site at Gath. And then the overview of it. It's called, the dig is called Tel Zafit. So that's a interesting look into that. From Gath, David goes to Adullam, and that's where people start joining him. His family members start joining him. So we're assuming his parents, because they come into the story later. And he starts acquiring this ragtag group of followers. You can see my son helped me draw his ragtag team of followers that are joining him at Adullam. It's a very motley crew. So this is the present day site of Adullam. We know it didn't really look anything like this in the day. However, it's interesting to note, and it's kind of a little bit hard to tell from this picture, but it's a hill. And so that provides some protection, depending on if you know someone's approaching from this direction, you can be kind of back over here and out of sight. There are caves there. We don't, of course, know for sure if those are the caves where David was hiding. It says stronghold. Sometimes that means a fort, and sometimes it means a cave. So, but people like to imagine this is the cave where he and his followers were hiding. So that's Adullam. And this is where David sort of decides that maybe it's not real safe for mom and dad, who are probably getting older, to be in the midst of, what is shaping up to be pretty ugly things happening for him. So he takes his parents down to Moab, to a place called Mizpah. And we do not know for sure where Mizpah is, but one possible location is Al-Karak. Now, this is not even sort of old enough to be something that was there when David would have taken his parents there, but it's a fun looking building, Al-Karak. And so, but this is, more Middle Ages. That's in present day Jordan. So that's where David leaves his parents in Moab. They would have had some connection there after all, since that's, where Ruth, he's a descendant of Ruth, and that's where Ruth came from. And he rejoins his mighty men, and despite the fact that they don't really want to, he decides that they need to protect the city of Keilah, which is close by Adullam, so you can see why they thought that might be a good, why he might thought that might be a good idea. But of course, David's men don't really want to make those kind of enemies at that point. But anyway, that's what they do. So that's where Keilah is. And so those are the areas we're going to be talking about in our lesson this week. And we'll talk about some of this stuff down here next week as we get further on into the story. If you sit down and read it, it really is a very dramatic story. So I hope that if it's been very strange watching it all unfold with all the weird place names, now that you know where they all are, that you go back and you read it again and watch the tension build, because it really is a wonderful story. And we'll do another little piece of it next week. Enjoy.